Desire Power, Chapter 2, Desire and Actions. Desire, as we have seen, is the crest of the wave of emotional feeling. At the same time, desire may be said to be the elementary stage or phase of will. Emotion, rising to desire, tends to become transformed into will. Before reaching the stage of desire, we find emotion manifesting the stage of affection under the several forms of the latter known as love, liking, fondness, attraction, passion, admiration, respectively. The spirit of affection is represented by the phrase "I like." Desire evolves from the stage of affection and manifests the inclination to wish, to want, to long for, to hanker after, to crave eagerly, to obtain or to enjoy the object of its affection. Desire manifests in several forms, as for instance, aspiration, ambition, craving, hunger, or thirst, employed figuratively, for attainment, or the simple wish or want. The spirit of desire is represented by the phrase "I want." Desire, however, only moves toward that to which it is attracted by affection. It wants only that which it likes. That which it neither likes nor yet dislikes fails to stir it into activity. That which it dislikes, it positively wants not. It seeks to avoid or to escape from or to be rid of or free from such things. The degree of desire depends materially upon the degree of affection for the object, though other elements enter into the calculation. As Gordy says, I will to do this or that because of some pleasure or benefit, and that, when analyzed, will be found to consist of some form of pleasure which I hope to gain, or of some pain which I hope to avoid. Here is the working principle briefly stated. We entertain an affection or like for that which gives us pleasurable feelings or emotions. We desire or want that for which we entertain an affection or like, i.e., that which gives us pleasurable feelings or emotions, and we will or act to do that which seems to tend to satisfy or accomplish our desire or want. In this working principle, we may find the secret of action, the wordings of the inner machinery of will which causes us to do things. We must find a thing pleasurable in order that we may like it. We must like it before we may want it, and we must want it before we will move into action to do things tending to attain, secure, gain, and accomplish that which will satisfy the desire. Desire is stirred into activity and moves out into expression only in response to an object. It is moved only by an incentive of an emotional character. Professor Halleck gives us the simple rule in his celebrated statement. Desire has for its object something which will bring pleasure or get rid of pain, immediate or remote, for the individual or for someone in whom he is interested. Aversion or a striving away from something is merely the negative aspect of desire. You will find that all forms and phases of desire are covered by the above statement. To be desire, a mental state must include and possess the above stated elements. If a mental state includes the above stated elements, then it must be desire. You are advised to commit the definition or statement to memory and to test your feelings by means of it when you are in doubt as to whether you desire a thing or not. Desire exerts a tremendous influence upon all phases of human action. It is the motive power of will. The latter tends to move toward the object of the greatest desire and to flow through its channels. The will is always moved by a motive, i.e., a cause or reason inciting to action, and that motive always is found in desire and the ideas attached to it. It is an axiom of psychology that the will goes out toward the strongest motive present in conscious or subconscious attention at the time of action. The strongest motive always is that idea representing the object of the strongest desire, or of the aggregate or average of the strongest desires present in attention at the moment of action. Desire also plays an important part in our thought, reasoning, and judgment. It quickens our perception and energizes our thought processes. It is proverbial that our judgments are affected by our feelings, emotions, affections, and desires. It has been truly said that most persons, when they seek to reason, strive rather to find excuses for their previous decisions rather than to advance logical reasons for new decisions. The decisions themselves have already been made, in most cases, because of feelings, emotions, affections, and desires. Our feelings and desires frequently cause us to perceive only the facts which we wish to discover and to overlook those which we do not wish to be uncovered. Johnson says, affection and desire put the magnifying end of the telescope to our intellectual eye where our own interests are concerned, and the minimizing end when we are looking at the interests of others for whom we entertain no affection. Halleck says, thought is deflected when it passes through an emotional medium, just as a sunbeam is deflected when it strikes water. Gulick says, our hopes, fears, ambitions, loves, and likes are the controlling factors of our lives. The purely mental, logical, or reasoning function is chiefly the servant of our desires and fears. That men are influenced more easily, more readily, and more frequently through their emotions, desires, and affections than through their reasoning faculties is well known. The orator, lawyer, statesman, and preacher, the salesman, and the advertising man all know that the road to men's heads runs through men's hearts. The great orators have been men of emotional power and men who put their hearts into their words and thus arouse the hearts of their hearers. Rochefoucauld said, the passions are the only orators that always succeed. Henry Clay said, Caesar controlled men by exciting their fears, Cicero by swaying their passions. Brooke says, it is the tender sentiment, the quivering lip, the trembling accent, the moistened eye that are often the most eloquent pleaders. Davenport says, the cool, rational speaker has little chance beside the skillful orator. The crowd thinks in images, and speech must take this form to be accessible to it. The crowd is united and governed by emotion rather than by reason. Emotion is the natural bond, for men differ less in this respect than in intellect. Burke said, there is a moving tone of voice and impassioned gesture which affects independently of the things about which they are exerted. So are their words and certain dispositions of words, which being peculiarly devoted to passionate subjects and always used by those who are under the influence of any passion, always touch and move us more than those which are far more clearly and distinctly express the subject matter. We yield to sympathy what we refuse to description. An old writer once said, few speakers succeed who attempt merely to make people think. They want to be made to feel. People will pay liberally to be made to feel or to laugh, while they will begrudge a sixpence for instruction or talk that will make them think. The reasons are palpable and plain. It is heart against head, soul against logic, and soul is bound to win every time. Cardinal Newman once said, the heart is commonly reached not through reason, but through the imagination. By means of direct impressions, by descriptions, persons influence us, voices melt us, deeds inflame us. One has but to recall instances of the great influence exerted over the public mind by the emotional appeals to affection or dislike, to prejudices for or against, to desires, ambitions, aspirations, cravings, longings, and things eagerly wanted, made by orators, politicians, statesmen, actors, and preachers in order to realize the potent effect of emotion, affection, and desire upon men's thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and convictions. A modern writer says, a large part of the business of life consists in moving the emotions and desires of men so as to get them to act. Another says, the successful man is he who is able to persuade the crowd that he has something that they want, or that they want something that he has. The successful salesman advertising man, or any other man who has things to sell other men all bring into play the force of desire in those whom they are seeking to interest in their projects. They appeal to the want or want to side of the mind of men. They play upon men's sympathies, their prejudices, their hopes, their fears, their desires, and their aversions. Men do things and act because of the motive power of their emotional nature, particularly in the form of affection and desire. This is the only reason impelling or influencing men to do things. Were this motive power absent, there would be no action or doing of things. There would be no reason or cause for such action or doing in that event. We act and do solely because we like and want. Were the emotional element absent, there would be no element of volition. Without desire, we would make no choices, would exercise no decision, would perform no actions. Without the want and want to, there would be no will to do and no doing. Desire is the motive power of action. Take away the motive power and there cannot be and will not be any movement, activity, or volition. Without the motive power of desire, the machinery of voluntary action ceases to operate and comes to a complete standstill. An old writer, whose words have been preserved for us, though his name is unknown to the present writers, enunciates a profound truth in the following rather startling statement. Every deed that we do, good or bad, is prompted by desire. We are charitable because we wish to relieve our inner distress at the sight of suffering, or from the urge of sympathy with its desire to express its nature, or from the desire to be respected in this world, or to secure a comfortable place in the next one. One man is kind because he desires to be kind, because it gives him satisfaction and content to be kind. Another man is unkind because he desires to be so, because it gives him satisfaction and content to be so. One man does his duty because he desires to do it. He obtains a higher emotional satisfaction and content from duty well done than he would from neglecting it in accordance with some opposing desires. Another man yields to the desire to shirk his duty. He obtains a greater satisfaction and content from refraining from performing his duty in favor of doing other and contrary things, which possess a greater emotional value to himself. The religious man is religious in his actions because his religious desires are stronger than are his irreligious ones. He finds a greater satisfaction and content in religious actions than in the pursuits of the worldly minded. The moral man is moral because his moral desires are stronger than his immoral ones. He obtains a greater degree of emotional satisfaction and content in being moral than in being immoral. Everything we do is prompted by desire in some shape or form, high or low. Man cannot be desireless and still act in one way or another, or in any way whatsoever. Desire is the motive power behind all action. It is a natural law of life. Everything from the atom to the monad, from the monad to the insect, from the insect to man, from man to nature, and possibly from nature to God, everything from lowest to highest and from highest to lowest, everything that is found to act and do things, to manifest action and to perform work by reason of the power and force of desire. Desire is the animating power, the energizing force, and the motive power in, under, and behind all natural processes, activities, and events. In order to appreciate fully the influence and power of the emotional states culminating in desire, upon the decisions and actions of men, it may be necessary for you to indulge in a little introspective speculation, employing your imagination in the task. You may start out with the assumption that no thing has a greater emotional value to you than any other thing, that you feel no greater desire to attain, possess, or enjoy any one thing more than another, that you do not want or want to in any particular direction any more than in any other. Admitting the existence of such a state of mind and feeling, You may then proceed logically to create an imaginative picture of the state of affairs certain to result from such mental state. In such event, you would find that not only would all things look alike to me, but that you would feel alike concerning all things. All things having an equal emotional value to you, you would really experience no emotional wanting, craving, or desiring for anything. Hunger and thirst having ceased to exist for you, comfort and discomfort would have passed away from you. Love and hate, like and dislike, no longer would have any meaning for you. You would quite as willingly starve or suffer extreme thirst as to satisfy hunger or thirst. You would quite as willingly suffer extreme discomfort and pain as to enjoy comfort and experience pleasure. You would be quite as willing to experience insult, revilement, and cruelty directed toward yourself or those near to you as you would to be shown kindness, consideration, respect, and kind treatment. Poverty and wealth would alike be valued or not valued by you. One would be quite as good as the other. You would no longer feel affection toward your parents, your mate, or your offspring, and you would not raise your hand to protect them from any assault or injury. All love and all sympathy would be foreign to you, as would also all hate, dislike, or desire to avoid anything or anybody. You would have no love of friends, nor of home, nor of country. The impulses of sex, high and low, would not affect you. You would have no liking or desire for truth and honesty, and yet no desire to lie or to be dishonest. You would have no desire to create, to construct, or invent. You would have no sense of love, of beauty, of art, of music, no desire to think, learn, read, or to use the mind in any way. You would have no moral or religious instincts or tendencies, yet you would suffer no temptations to indulge in vice or courses frowned upon by ethics and religion. All feelings high and low, good and bad, virtuous and vicious, all would be lacking in you. In such an event, you would have no tastes concerning anything, no preferences about anything, no love or hatred for anything, no like or dislike of anything, no desire or aversion for anything, and consequently, you would not exert your will to attain or to avoid anything. You would not will at all. You would not act at all in any direction. You would be a living dead man. For all that constitutes the meaning of life would be absent from your being. Apathy and lethargy would be your lot. You would not even live long, for you would feel no desire to act to supply yourself with nourishment, nor to secure protection from the elements or from hostile forces or things. If the world were desireless, there would be no activity in it. Not only would all living things cease to manifest their natural characters and natures, but even the inorganic forms would cease to act and move and perform their natural processes. For, know you, desire dwells even on the lower planes of nature, even on the planes of so-called lifeless things. Everything that has the power of self-movement is found to move to or away from certain other things for which it may be said to have like or dislike. The attraction and repulsion among the atoms and molecules of matter are held by scientists to proceed according to well-defined like and dislike, love and hate, desire in an elementary form. The chemical affinity between the chemical elements clearly proceeds along the lines of like and dislike. This being so, a desireless world would lack the activities of these inorganic elements, the cessation of the natural forces, and would be at a standstill. This idea has been objected to by some on the grounds that most of our actions and those of all other creatures and things proceed along the lines of habit rather than of actual desire. The answer to this is one, all habits original or inherited through race memory and instinct have been created and established by repetitions of actions found agreeable and hence according to desire. They are derivative or secondary manifestations of desire. And two, your own experience will prove to you that it is decidedly more comfortable and agreeable to act according to habit than in the opposite direction. The difficulty experienced by one is overcoming an objectionable habit in sufficient proof that one wants to act in the habitual manner and finds it agreeable and pleasant to do so. Desire reigns in the field of habit as in every other mental field. The line of least resistance runs along the path of habit and in response to a marked feeling of comfort. We feel assured that you have now convinced yourself that all of your actions are directly or indirectly caused by your desires, and that the latter are based upon your particular emotional values, i.e., upon the kind, character, direction, and degree of your likes and dislikes. The more closely you study and analyze the actions and doings of yourself and other individuals, the more firmly established will be your conviction that all voluntary action proceeds along the lines of desire and arises from the presence and activity of desire. There is no known exception to this rule, and the more extended the observation and experiment, the greater is the proof of the rule. In testing out the truth of the above announced rule of action, you should always bear in mind the true and full definition of desire. For convenience, we again quote the Halleck rule. Desire has for its object something which will bring pleasure or get rid of pain, immediate or remote, for the individual or for someone in whom he is interested. Aversion or a striving away from something is merely a negative aspect of desire. Observation and an experiment will prove conclusively to you the truth of the rule that all voluntary actions arise from desire, in the above stated sense of the term, and always proceed along the lines of desire. However, there is another step in our reasoning on the subject, a step which many hesitate to take and over which many stumble and fall in their reasoning, a step which logically follows the acceptance of the foregoing rule and which is the inevitable, invariable, and infallible conclusion of the premise or proposition advanced in that rule. This second or derivative rule is as follows. All voluntary action proceeds along the line of the strongest desire motive, or the aggregate or average of such motives, present in conscious or subconscious attention at the moment of decision or action. Stated in simpler terms, this rule is, you always act according to the greatest like or dislike of which you are cognizant at the time. So true and invariable is this rule that it may be truthfully asserted that you could not apply. So true and invariable is this rule that it may be truthfully asserted that you not only always do so act, but that you cannot act to the contrary. If you act at all, you must act according to this rule. This last is a hard saying for most persons when it is first presented to their notice, but it is a true one, and the repugnance to it arises from a misunderstanding concerning, or at least a failure to comprehend fully, the real meaning of the proposition. We ask you to give the matter careful attention, for it is important. The principal objection urged against this rule by many persons when it is first presented to them is that which may be expressed in the statement, but I actually often do things against my desires and inclinations and which I really do not want to do at all. At first, this statement may seem to express the truth, but a little analysis will soon uncover the fallacy. The analysis may begin with the following question. But why do you do the thing which you say you do not want to do? There is always an answer, and that answer usually begins with the word because. A because is a cause or reason. It is a motive to action, and that because, reason, or motive is always discovered to be some form or phase of desire, a want to secure or to avoid or escape something. The why implies a motive. The because states the motive, and the want is the essence of the motive. You may desire very much to attend the opera, but you decide to stay home at the last moment. Why? Because of the wishes of your wife, the illness of your child, the notice or the visit of a friend, or some other because based upon a desire, wish, or want to. There may be a conflict of desires, but the strongest desire at the moment wins the battle. You may discard even a strong desire for a present and immediate pleasure or benefit in favor of a desire for a remote one promising greater benefit or satisfaction. You may inhibit and suppress a strong desire because of your desire to give pleasure or to avoid causing pain to someone for whom you care, or for fear of condemnation and disapproval on the part of others, or because of the promptings of conscience and the feeling that you would afterward repent or feel remorse because of the action, or because the force of habit, custom, usual mode of action, etc., brings down the balance of desire against the proposed action. In short, you may decide not to do the thing you first desired and wanted to do so strongly, but only because of the greater desire for something else or to escape something else. These illustrations might be continued almost indefinitely, but the above examples indicate the general principle involved. You will find that the strongest element of desire, to have or to avoid or escape, will win the day. The rule is you always act according to your greatest like or dislike of which you are cognizant at the time. When you feel regret, repentance, or remorse because of past actions or failure to act, it is simply because time has added new elements or is giving you new points of view. Your emotional values have changed, and the problem no longer is the same which confronted you when you made the decision. New facts, new ideas, new conditions may add to the emotional values of one course of action and subtract from the values of others. But the action you now wish you had taken, like the one which you now wish you had not taken, always is based upon the same rule of the strongest like or dislike present at the moment of the decision. Samuel L. Clemens, Mark Twain, presented his philosophy based upon this principle of voluntary action in a somewhat blunt and startling form. Helvetius, the French philosopher, had announced the same conclusion in the 18th century, but few had heard of Helvetius, while many have heard of Mark Twain. Helvetius, in his main work, advanced the principle that the grand lever of all human conduct is self-satisfaction. He admitted, however, that self-satisfaction may assume many and widely contrasted forms. For instance, said he, the self-satisfaction of a good man consists in his subordination of private to more general interests, first to the circle of persons in which he moves, then to the general community, and finally to the world at large. Self-satisfaction, he held, may be base or noble, egotistic or altruistic, immoral or moral, irreligious or religious, low or high, selfish or unselfish, in the ordinary usage of these terms, and so on. But it remains self-satisfaction all the time, in all cases, and is never self-dissatisfaction or the refusal to satisfy the self at the last. Helvetius taught, in short, that man acts in the direction of satisfying and contenting his own strongest feelings, emotions, and desires. This seems to be a harsh doctrine until it is thoroughly understood and appreciated, but all of our moral and ethical training is based upon its fundamental truth. We endeavor to have the individual feel right in order to have him act right. If we cannot get him to love the right, we then proceed to get him to fear the consequences of wrongdoing. We work upon his desire nature in either case. This is all that Helvetius meant, i.e., that men act according to inner motives, the strongest motives of self-satisfaction, deciding the nature of the action. Clemens uses the term contenting the spirit in place of Helvetius' term self-satisfaction, but both mean the same at the last. Clemens says, there is only one impulse which moves a person to do things. That sole impulse is the impulse to content his own spirit, the necessity of contenting his own spirit and winning its approval. The act must do him good first, Otherwise, he will not do it. He may think he is doing it for the other person's sake, but it is not so. He is contenting his own spirit first. The other person's benefit has to always take second place. There is but one law, one source of men's acts. Both the noblest impulses and the basest proceed from that one source. This is the law. Keep it in your mind. From his cradle to his grave, a man never does a single thing which has any first and foremost object but one: to secure peace of mind, spiritual comfort for himself. He will always do the thing which will bring him the most mental comfort, for that is the sole law of his life. Always spirit contenting reasons. There are no others. There is another general rule concerning desire, which it is important that you should note and remember. The rule is as follows: the degree of force, energy, will, determination, persistence, and continuous application manifested by an individual in his aspirations, ambitions, aims, performances, actions, and work is determined primarily by the degree of want and want to concerning that object. So true is this principle that some who have studied its effects have announced the aphorism, you can have or be anything that you want if you only want it hard enough. To want a thing hard enough is equivalent to paying the price for it, the price of the sacrifice of lesser desires and wants, the casting off of the non-essentials and the concentration of desire upon the one essential idea or thing, and the application of the will to its attainment or accomplishment. Much that we have been in the habit of ascribing to the possession and the manifestation of a strong will has really been due to the element of will, which is called conation, i.e., desire tending toward expression in will action. The man filled with an ardent, fierce, burning, craving, and urge for and toward a certain object will call to his aid the latent powers of his will and of his intellect. These, under the motive power and stimulus of desire, will manifest unusual activity and energy toward the accomplishment of the desired end. Desire has well been called the flame which produces the heat which generates the steam of will. Very few persons comparatively know how to desire with sufficient intensity and insistence. They content themselves with mere wishing and mild wanting. They fail to experience that insistent desire, which is one of the important elements of the master of formula of attainment. They do not know what it is to feel and manifest that intense, eager, longing, craving, insistent, demanding, ravenous desire, which, to use a favorite and oft-repeated expression of ours, is akin to the persistent, insistent, ardent, overwhelming desire of the drowning man for a breath of air, of the shipwrecked or desert-lost man for a drink of water, of the famished man for bread and meat, of the fierce wild creature for its mate, of the mother for the welfare of her children. Yet, if the truth were known, the desire for success of the men who have accomplished great things has often been as great as these. We are not necessarily slaves to our desires. We may master the lower or disadvantageous desires by will under the power of the I am I or master self. We may transmute lower desires into higher, negatives into positives, hurtful into helpful in this way. We may become masters of desire instead of being mastered by it. But before we may do so, we must first desire to do so, accomplish and attain this end. We may even rise to the heights of will, the place where the I am I may say truthfully, I will to will, and I will to desire. But even there, we must first desire to so will to will and will to desire. Even at these sublime heights of egohood, we find desire to be the fundamental and elemental motive power. This because it abides at the very heart of things, the heart of ourself, the heart of life. Even there, we essay and accomplish the highest deeds and acts of will solely and simply because they serve to content our spirit, to give us the highest degree of self-satisfaction, to gratify, satisfy, and give expression and manifestation to our greatest, most insistent, most persistent, and strongest want and want to.